that's all the thanks. Okay, first poet, Pete Akunwunmi, all the way from Newport. Thank you, Pete.
On the basis of the fact that I think most people will clap louder for the first person than anybody else, I'm glad I'm first. I'm one of those people that can read without my specs. In fact, I can't read with them, but it means I can't see you, so I apologise. I know, assuming that I'm in a stadium full of 60, 70,000 people. Okay, I have one poem in the... are we reading them all at the same time, or are we alternating? You know, three. Do you want me to do three now?
Oh, three now, please, yeah, great, yeah. Best thing, yeah.
Okay, well, the one in the magazine, I'm not going to start with that, because first of all, it honestly is not very representative of my poetry, although I'm not sort of... I don't really know enough about poetry to be able to say why. I just know it doesn't really represent, and I don't know why it's chosen, I'll be honest. And the other thing is, I don't know why I wrote it. I'm sure people have that feeling, don't they, about some pieces of work. I honestly don't know where it came from. But I'll leave that for now. Only because I wanted to start with the most recent thing that I have written. Because I am in the process of writing my memoir, I've written about between 18 and 20,000 words of my memoir, and my memoir is a narrative, obviously, but I'm including poems in it along the way, which I'm finding a really enjoyable task, but frankly, the nature of my life has meant that a lot of it's been very hard work. And after Des and I were at, this time last week, at our regular Newport meeting of poets, I don't know if it was obvious, Des, at the time, but some of the things I found real difficulty reading, sort of reading them aloud for the first time to an audience for the first time. And it wasn't very easy. But then the next day, this came out of me, so this is last Thursday. And it's called I Love Me Now. I love me now. Now that I know that the emotional traumas and suffering I experienced were omens, and were inevitable if I continued to be at war with my own truth. Authenticity is hard to find. I love me now. Now that I know that convincing the world means I must wait until the right time. I must be patient with others and myself. Respect was hard to find. I love me now. Now that I know that worrying about what has passed or is about to come takes away from enjoying the moment that matters, here and now. Fulfillment was hard to find. I love me now. Now that I know that I'm not always right, I find I'm much less wrong. Modesty was hard to find. I love me now. Now that I know that desiring a different life is pointless, that everything and everybody in my life is helping me grow. Maturity was hard to find. I love me now. Now that I know that things happen as they're supposed to happen. Invariably, I'm in the right place, at the proper time, and I can be calm and serene. Self-confidence was hard to find. I love me now. Now that I know how not to steal time from myself. I've stopped making big plans for a future of which I'm ignorant. Instead, I'll do what brings me joy, makes me dance, and encourages my heart to sing my songs to my tunes, my rhythm, with my own audacity. Simplicity was hard to find. I love me now. Now that I know to be free of habits that are bad for me, fast people, fast things, fast situations, temptations used to pull me away from myself. When I surround myself with good people, good things, good situations, I recognize how much healthier I am. Loving me took a long time. I love me now that I know disturbances in my own mind weaken and sicken me. My mind is only an ally to the whole of me if it stays connected to my heart. Wisdom is hard to find. I love me now that I know I need fear disagreements no more. People will be jealous, covetous, pompous and argumentative. But there was one almighty collision back there in the depths of time, and from it, life emerged. Life was hard to find. That's the end of that one. And secondly, this mysterious thing which is called pretty sleazy. Now I'm happy that you've chosen it, right? I'll be honest, or whoever did the choosing. Although, as I said, I don't really understand why it was chosen. Pretty sleazy. Stars dance like marionettes as they glitter through the leaves. Open ears on trembling earth hear susurrations through the trees. Close those pretty eyes to pray and to see what the beggar sees, and you may find salvation from the quagmire of the sleaze. Kiss the pregnant rosebud, watch as the petals burst. Glory as the rain sucks flowers from the dirt. Sing your pretty song, I say, from bloodied, ruined knees, praying for deliverance from the rotting, sweetened sleaze. Drink the milk and whiskied honey, celebrate with style, harvests, sensuous sunsets, the miracle of the child. Your pretty heart can fly, I say, as fledglings on the breeze, if it could claim exemption from the all-embracing sleaze. Pretty, pretty, pretty folk, pretty much needing breaths of hope. The pretty pieces you love and loathe, churned in a pretty kaleidoscope. All those pretty playmates with their pretty bright white grins. Caustic cause, pretty ugly from all those pretty sleazy sins. You think you may be saved if you close your pretty eyes, if you sing that pretty song of yours as your pretty heart flies. But your past will march before you, blackened by disease, and it will blind your pretty mind whilst you wallow in the sleaze. Thanks. This last one is called I'd Like a Word. And of course it's a reflection of the fact that we're all here because we like, indeed love words and putting them together, etc. Words. Meaning, expression and reception. Each unique and intimate, mere units with which to communicate, lexical devices, verbal instruments, creative inventions, companions, mates that are with me, ever ready to assist with my curiosities and relationships. Words to think, murmur, sing and holler, dimensions and features as distinct as colour, as definite as stones, yet ineffable brothers. I taste them as I speak. At times when I seek for just the right word or phrase, I tingle as when selecting exactly the right dish for my palate to enrich and enhance my life and my mood. I choose from a beautifully described and bountiful menu, and knowing that just right word or phrase is a feeling less to do with meaning. It has somehow to chime with my inner being. Words are friends, so I respect them, and they do well for me. My best friends are wonder and mystery. I can't feel or use either negatively. They're always good words, as funny and interesting as people. Wonder is yellow and feels jazz red. It has a zingy citrus taste that always takes me to heaven. Mystery smells of sweet silver peppermint, is a multi-textured smooth, and takes me alone to places I rejoin my essence. I don't like some words, those that are fat, too soft, squishy. Triumph is such a word. I don't trust its pomposity. Let me tell you a story of a long abandoned story into which I'd committed some 18,000 friends. It told of a society of forest dwellers, the root clingers, whose hair went uncut and descended to the floor. The females' coiffure grew from their head like ours, but the fellas grew from their shoulders. A feature of the story is that root clingers' hair displayed their emotions, so the only way to disguise passion of any nature was to hold it in place with substances, hair clips, or a hat. The girls did quite a lot of this. The guys could rarely be asked. Imagine the fun I had with that. Meanwhile, the hair that grew from legs, ankles, and feet, they used to bind themselves to the roots of trees because the forest wind blew so ferociously. Hence, root clingers. The plot involved friends who became enemies, for some worshipped the wind in thanks for the bounty it blew from the trees. Others regarded birds as their deities, believing birdsong carried the secrets of their being. I'm so involved with words that to exercise this grave dis-ease with some of them, I contrived this story for catharsis. Accordingly, I called my hero Umphant. There were times in the tale when his friends urged him to try harder. So, triumphant, you can do it. So you can see what I did there. In the end, he and his friends, who believed in Wu, the god of wind, yes, there were plenty of wind-related witticisms too, were to discover plotters, win over doubters, and set out on a path to redeem their nature and conquer the baddies who were less devout. However, and this is my point, as the story progressed, I fell out of love with Umphant, my hero, no longer wanting to bear the stress of saying his name, even in my head. I narrate this piece as a paradigm of my relationship with words. I started the story as an exercise to encourage myself to like a word I'd cursed, and I failed. However, I did realize this wild and joyful eternal affair, so please be aware, I select all my words with love and care. I am as precise in my meaning as I intend and dare. No mystery about what it was that you heard. If I said it, wonder not, I mean every word.
John's the next one up. You okay, John?
Yeah.
Already? Yeah, John Brookes, who's from round the corner up the road.
Sorry?
You're from round the corner up the road, are you?
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. John. Thank you.
So my name is John. I'm actually J. Brookes. Yeah, I write poems. When I write poetry, it's just J. Brookes. I don't know why I did that. But what I did many years ago, I stick by it. I am J. Brookes. This one's called Easter Concert. I know it's not quite the time of year, but it was a memory of a concert in, I think St Edward's is at church. A lovely church, actually. Very nice place. And it was Easter, so very grand and beautiful music. Just my sort of music. Easter Concert. It was free, the Easter concert, so I stepped through the porch for a seat as the parish came in from the street and waved to each other and coughed till soft from the settling stalls a clarinet called to a fiddle that called to a flute. The choir joined in. With hand and bowing arm and breath, the instruments of wood and brass took hold and shook the stone and glass. while over all the singers soared and leaned like angels from the clouds to fix the mad conductor in the eye and tell of shit and bloody death. Late sun set the mullions aglow, saint and scholar looking down, with holy and indifferent frowns, to where we rode the joyful storm, towards the final reconciled Amen. And when it came, such sweet repose, you could have heard a bishop blow his nose. The second one is memory of going to Iceland with a young friend. Iceland, not the country, but the store. Iceland. Somebody did say memorably that poems are never finished, they're just abandoned. Well, here's a prime example of a poem just abandoned, really. Awesome. Iceland. It is the Isle of Pies you want, prefiguring defrosting upside-down pudding with hastening step, round brittle pizza, the rock of Korma. Your step is sure, your aim is true. The pudding takes to you at once, clings with icy little claws to your thumb, removing skin. Alarm bells clamour in your eyes. Your small mouth tightens to a ball. A bead of splud wells up and drops into the cabinet, lands well, on all fours, and freezes like a parachutist on occupied terrain. Look about it on.
Okay, next up is joining us for the first time is comes from Porth, Jason. Thank you.
Hi all, nice to meet you. I'm Jason. So the first one I'll read is from. I'm grateful that Mike's going to include, hopefully, in an anthology coming out next year. I think it's very self-explanatory. I was walking with my wife and mother-in-law, and we were talking about the history of Cliddock up in the valleys. So this is called The Underground Black. We were lucky with the weather. Nora was born just up the hill from Cliddock Bottom Lake. She pointed the street out as we squinted into the sun. The hooter went at 5 each morning to rouse the miners. Little girls soon learned to sleep through. A prehistoric pulley dragged ton buckets of coal past her bedroom window all day, every day. Winds were frosted with soot. Her ancient telly showed shadows of the buckets as they passed. Soon a railway was added, she said, and it roared with gravity down the hill, aching with the weight. In 1965 or 6, Nora said, it collapsed. Men were trapped for breath and hugged and died beneath our very feet. Shaft A is still clearly marked, and if you lean over a marker for Shaft A and listen close, you can hear their voices rising from the underground black, shouting for their wives, their fathers, their children. And that's that. Thank you. Okay, during lockdown, a friend of mine died in his 40s, leaving 4 children of 18 down to 7, and an absolute nightmare of a godless world. Horrible. We had to hold the funeral outside, a creche that he'd spent a lot of time building. He was an electrician, hence Spark. And this is brief. The story of the funeral being in a place he'd built before he went. Spark. I could see where his screwdriver had been in the tiny screws around a light switch, and in the ceiling he had laid wire that lit the whole building. We walked around what he'd built and switched his lights on and off. They'd tied balloons to each chair to lift us out of that place, and the balloons bowed in the wind as the hearse came in. They took ages backing the body onto the drive, everything shivered, and as usual the silence. The silence is a towel we wrap ourselves in as we shiver. The hill is an arc in the sky and everything is growing out of it. The hill is an arc in the sky and everything is growing out of it. Lustrous with spilling life and the 4 children, but he laid wire in the ceiling that will light the whole building. And that's that. Slightly later. Okay. Okay, last one. It's called a wedding, inexplicably enough. The boredom of the Brown Church. 30 minutes before she even starts to be late. Head twisting, uncomfortable chat, the fat and the old arrive with a small girl in a waistcoat. We pretend to know what we are doing. Groom mindful, wet hands behind back, still young thus ugly, struts and frets his art. The boredom leads to windows, stained from archaeological times. The light begins to change, roof held up inconceivably, and the light swims. The windows stripping me of sarcasm stream into us. Oh my, the startling beauty of this empty place, this obtuse belonging, these faces to become people later. The rising sense of belonging, a glimpse of flowers and a scurrying. The old women know what's going on. Bridesmaid with backpack light candle. She appears, sobs the words because their power is unassailable. Their ritual occurs, things change, they sign a book. Now a definite group, undifferentiated. Windows stream light implausibly. Oh my. When we get outside, the streets are still there. A series of shrieks barely stirs us. Cameras and handshakes, a nervous mingling. Cars and the thrill. An old man says, I'm going blind in this one eye. We board the coach and for a moment no one fears death. We sing happy birthday to the small thin girl who doesn't know whether to love us. An endless journey punctuated by gin leads us to the castle. Exuberance greets the two and they are delighted. 10 circular tables of 10, lacy obfuscations pulled tight over plastic, the toing and the froing and the rounds and the nods and the jackets strewn. The small girl sits in her waistcoat and drawers. The boredom of the speeches. Each of us holds a locked razor. The crackling of the inept microphone. The windows of the castle generate their old power. I'm sorry, but I've lost it. The groom means what he says, and the windows pour light on our upturned faces, and love is real. Then there's the disco, the boredom of the disco. It's usual, but for the small girl, it's the first time ever. Red, blue, green, and the droning man. The fabulous small girl kneels, rocks back and sings a lungful. The joy is present in her. We stand outside and drink in the light. Josh missed, and then our keeper saved 3. We sway with the drink and the ritual, and the dance floor fills, and the family kiss and say what they mean for once, and the small girl turns through 360 degrees and smiles and thinks it might be worthwhile. Thank you. Apologies for the...
Right, next up is Rob Cullen, who's got a great poem in the issue, but he's not going to read it because he reckons it's a bit long. So, Rob, thank you.
I go to the hospital 3 times a week to have photo treatment, which is I've got very bad eczema, so that I stand in this cone of silence with a sock. That's all you need to know. And this morning I thought, shit, Mike Jenkins. Now, I don't know why that came to me in the corner of silence, but at any rate, I've been pretty angry this week, which doesn't really do my eczema much good. Let it be said. So one English MP is killed and his political class demand attention. Turn on the tears while the COVID dead lie cold, lie still without apologies. 137,000 lives lost, lie dead and cold in their graves. And not one of the political class shed a tear or expressed remorse or offered apologies. So they say politics has changed. Social media has brought a nastiness. Yeah, well, politics has changed. The hard-working poor work for nothing. The food banks grow empty, children are hungry and mothers starve. Politics has changed and become nasty. 137,000 souls lie dead and cold in their graves, but not forgotten. Yes, politics has become nasty, deadly. So one English MP is killed, 137,000 souls lie dead and cold in their graves, but not forgotten. I've had a problem with my voice, my speaking voice. I have what's called complex PTSD, and one of the side effects of that is that you lose your voice. And for a long time, I haven't been able to project my voice properly. And what my daughters say is my voice. I went to my daughter's wedding at the back end of September and decided, instead of doing the father of the brides giving the bride away speech, to read 2 poems. I'm not going to read them now. I could, but I'm not. But my voice came back. And my daughters who were there said, Dad's voice is back. So, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, although I'm not. So, Tory ambivalence to the state of the people. One flick of the thumb, 1 second. It takes 1 second to breathe in, 1 second to look down at a headline. Pictures of a flooded high street. Moving on takes 1 flick of the thumb. Moving on to the next picture, a stabbed man lying in a black blood pool. Moving on takes no time at all, just 1 flick of the thumb. It takes 1 second to lose your grip. 1 more second and you're drowning. Just 1 flick of the thumb and gone. Moving on, you become a fading memory. Moving on, the headlines forget you. With 1 flick of the thumb, move on. Moving on to a part of this or that. Moving on like a shroud on a bad day. It takes 1 second to break. It takes 1 second to ask you, okay? Just 1 second before it's too late. Everyone's moving on. Everyone's gone. So tomorrow we have an important anniversary. Aberfan. John talked about the Cambrian disaster, which was within a year of Aberfan. The Cambrian disaster, most of the men were fathers of children I was in school with. So the day after the explosion, I walked into school and my class wasn't there. So, yeah, we have memories and we have anniversaries, and our anniversaries are also about governments that just didn't care. So this is called Bitter Limp Fruit, and I was pleased that this was published in the Atlanta Review 2 years ago, which was the spring edition, and it was a Welsh, Cornish, it was the Celtic edition basically. So I said I wouldn't read the one in the mag because it's long, but I've decided to read this one because it's the anniversary. But this is a long poem, but not as long as the one in the mag. Okay, so it's called Bitter Limp Fruit. Imagine fishermen labouring in a heavy swell, pulling in the trawl to find silver bitter limp fruit entwined in the mesh of drip green nets, the dead-eyed souls of their own young children. And we stay silent, for our history is never told. Silenced from the hour, the days and the years, for we are edited out of the hour of our times. Imagine coal miners hollowing out the seams, men stripping coal a mile and more underground, and the hooters above call them away. Brought up into blink white light to see the black tip, the waste of their toils, washed into the village, spewed over the school where small children sang hymns and songs and were supposed to be safe. And we stay silent, for our history is never told. Silenced from the hour, the days and the years, for we are edited out of the hour of our times. Imagine the trail of letters written for telling concerns, the dead-nerved fears that a disaster would occur, and the NCB replies, not days, not months, but years later, and on a grey, fog-filled October, after weeks of rain, a small children's school and a day of devastation, exactly in the manner and the way foretold. And imagine if no one was held to account and those families told, make the slag heap safe from the proceeds raised for the disaster fund. And we stay silent, for our history is never told. Silenced from the hour, the days and the years, for we are edited out of the hour of our times. Imagine the miner, the father, the brother, the son, looking at the sprawl of waste they dug. Imagine the mother, the sister, the daughter, looking out at the grey listlessness of another day, of the silent keening, the numbed grieving, of the impossibility of using words to describe. And we stay silent, for our history is never told. Silenced from the hour, the days and the years, for we are edited out of the hour of our times. Imagine the mothers bringing up children, the happiness and hopes for the future. Imagine the sister who stayed off school. Imagine the brother too slow and was late. Imagine the vacuum where our life had once been. Imagine a young life where a vacuum is now. And we have been silenced, our history lost words, and our future is silent and will never be told. Silenced from the hour, silenced from all our days, silenced from the years, silence from all that might have been. The government made a grant of £200,000 to the NCB towards the cost of removing the tips, and under intolerable pressure from the government, the trustees of the disaster fund agreed to contribute £150,000. And MPs cry for one. Thank you.
Because the next up is Leanne Evans, and Leanne's grandfather, Morg Williams, was a miner, and he was also in this magazine and also read with the Red Poets. So Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. I'll try to find a copy with Morgan. I've got it somewhere.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. That'd be lovely.
Yeah.
I've got all his books, but I don't think I've got
Oh,
that one.
yeah, you read a few times with the Red Poets.
Ah.
There you go.
So thank you, Mike. I wanted to thank you first because I think it took 5 attempts to actually get it correct. And you didn't tell me what it needed to be, which was amazing because it actually got me to work on it myself. So thank you ever so much for your help. That's appreciated. So my poem that's in the Red Poets magazine is called The View From Here. And I wrote it during lockdown because I was working for the NHS and I kept going up the A470 and there was no traffic. It was like really like an apocalypse, like everyone had just disappeared and it was just me. So I was sitting in my house one day and I was just looking out the window and I thought, yeah, okay, I'm going to write something about what I actually see from the window because it is quite lonely. So it's called The View From Here. The dull brown roof tiles stand to attention, waiting for the rain to fall. The trees stand large in my thoughts like soldiers on a front line, the desperation to break free from the solitude of this life. The pylons spin an integrated web of wire between the elongated arms of the poles that seem to reach for the clouds of all shapes and sizes, merrily dancing along a gracious sea of blue. The flowers shower the garden with an explosion of colour, like a rainbow once the rain has fallen, and hot salty tears hit the floor. The wind whistles like an old steam train as it travels hastily on its way. A person cycles by, no name, no smile, left alone with my memories of being outside. The humming of the computer invades my mind like a robot, whilst the ticking of the clock continues as life passes by and I sit alone. Rob, I totally get what you said because I've got eczema as well, so I get it. And I've actually got complex post-traumatic stress disorder as well, so I really do get it. So I write about my mental health and experiences I've had in life because I lived in fear for 40 years. So now I kind of allow others to know that they don't need to do that. There is help out there. So this one is called Fear in Oneself. School bag sits heavily on downward shoulders. Crumpled body antagonizes protuberant abdomen as an inquisious door opens with trepidation and blackness prevails. Indifferent feet advance, lacking connections to reasoning, heart hammering in anticipation, fear exuding from apprehensive paws. Aggressive walls encapsulate body and air sizzles, wild animals violently encircle. Incomprehensible words inflict painless torment and facial expressions grovel along the floor. Empty eyes beg for forgiveness, the veil of wanting peer acceptance draped across slumped shoulders, while faded friends judge, afraid of retribution. I'm actually going to read something a bit more uplifting, so Mike's like, yes, she's got something more uplifting. So he said about my granddad, and I have a little story to tell you as well, that I didn't realise that your name and the Red Poet's name is actually on his books. He used to write people's names on. I'm on there, my father, family members are on there, but yours is on there as well. So I may have to bring you the books to show you that, but they're definitely on there. So childhood adventure. Leapfrogging over back walls, full sprint across the valley. Mountains tower above us, home just a faded memory. Bony arms reach towards clouds that sail across a sea of pure blue, and new life bursting through a picture of greens. Babbling brooks speak in foreign tongues while earthy scent holds nostrils hostage and the dog wildly chases the world. Abandoned footwear, grass tickling small feet with laughter, timidly stepping into cooling stream, the sun blazing down and onto pale skin caressed by cooling water. Sand-bedded toes that dig fiercely deeper, and the loneliness yet security in this ancient place. Hair blows wildly as we race down the mountainside, and bees sing sweetly as they dance alongside. A childhood adventure begins closing as the sun falls sleepily from the sky. Thank you.
Yeah, before I read, just like to thank Agit, who owns the restaurant, for letting us use this for free. You know, and the food's great as well. So I don't know, you know, if you sample it, it's really good. Okay, this is the one from the magazine. This is the time of the Black Lives Matter protests. You know, you realise all that stuff anyway. This is my own. Hardly any like me up this valley, but even in Ponty there's a protest today. I ain't one for politics, mind. All I know is I can't get a job. My girlfriend's doing well in a shop. Lucky it's been open, this virus going on. Same day, it's all kicking off. Statue pulled down and trouble in London. I'm just walking down High Street when these boys, I don't know, shout out, "Hey you, get back where you come from." They was laughing and acting hard. "I only live up the road," I replies. They just give me wanker signs. Most people here are tidy. One old man told me about this Paul Robeson, some black singer, supported a miners. Never learnt nothing about him in school. This is my own. But even before lockdown, nothing was moving, nothing happening. Okay, this is also like last summer, and not last summer as in this summer, it doesn't really matter actually. But anyway, this is about people visiting Abersoch, and they interviewed these people on telly, and they said, "Oh yeah, Abersoch, lovely place." So I sort of started to play on that, and okay, in Abersoch. Somebody, I stuck this on Facebook, and somebody said, "I think you spelt the name wrong, Mike." I said, "It is slightly the point of the poem, but never mind." Yeah, in Abersoch. We booked for Costa Brava this year, but the pandemic gave us a shock, and we ended up in Abersoch. I really don't intend to mock those gobby consonants of the language which fly amok in Abersoch. We'd rather be drinking hock on a cruise along the Rhine than walking the beach under umbrellas in Abersoch. Or imagine eating food from a wok on the streets of exotic Bangkok rather than soggy chips in Abersoch. We could be feeding the macaques at that well-known Gibraltar Rock, not fighting off seagulls in Abersoch. Or staying round the block from the Chelsea Hotel in New York. Not even Shirley Bassey comes from Abersoch. Just imagine, in South Africa, hunting springboks instead of swatting away wasps from our ice creams in Abersoch. When we are truly crocs, when we can't cope with clocks, then perhaps we'll relish Abersoch. As a Welsh learner, I'm finding, I do try to write poetry in Welsh occasionally, but what I'm finding is a lot of Welsh languages kind of seeping into my poetry, and there's a few phrases here. I don't do it for effect, honest. It just happens that way, and it's a few phrases here like darlleniadau Cymru, which just means throughout Wales, and a cronfa ddŵr, which is a reservoir. I think that's about it. Or blodau wyllt, which is wildflowers. So these words just came into this poem, and then I had to translate it for this anthology into Welsh. So that bit was quite easy. So it's called Red Flowers, and it's about, you must have seen them, the Cofiwch Tryweryn graffiti, which is, there's a great one just down from Ponty, isn't there, on the old pillar where the viaduct was, where the railway viaduct was. So the Red Flowers is the Cofiwch Tryweryn graffiti. There are flowers blooming on walls throughout our nation, from seeds which long ago were thought to have rotted. Red flowers with white stems growing on brick, concrete, stone. Darlleniadau Cymru, people have planted them. In depths of a cronfa ddŵr, we see ourselves again. This is what comes from the axe and hammer. Blodau wyllt, bright rememberers, stars reflected underwater. Okay, diolch yn fawr, thank you. Go breakdown.
Did you check cards?
I'm sure you saw something. Let's have this now. I shall just put the correct glasses on for reading. And I'll start with the one in the magazine, which is before lockdown, and of course this came out just before lockdown and caused chaos with everything afterwards. So I was actually in London doing the first book launch. The sun is beating down on me in the streets of London as I find a place to rest, a square park, grass park, concrete, and with a fountain, but still with the buzz of traffic, no peace here. However, there is a temporary break from the heat of the sun's rays, and amongst the clang and clatter of a distant building site, there is also the laughter of strangers, the joking, the conversation, the lunchtime sandwiches, the sometimes sunglasses wearers in the square. And the chimes of Big Ben begin their round again. Some sleep on benches, others carry children, and some chirrup away on phones. Pigeons who know no fear have found me here, surrounded by the laughter of strangers, because I'm alone in this city, except for the laughter of strangers. Perhaps will come the day where it will always be this way, surrounded by strangers, by soft-spoken summer conversation, by the laughter of strangers, or will we remain distant forever, locked away, and the growing gangs of pigeons will win? The next one is from an anthology which is going to be launched in Keats' house on Keats' birthday, apparently. If you know what Keats' birthday is, it's Halloween, so read into that one what you will about Keats. It's an anthology called Where We Find Ourselves, Poems and Stories of Maps and Mapping from UK Writers of the Global Majority. So, put simply, that's people in Britain who are not white. Bear with me a second, I just need to find where they've put this. There it is. So mine, again, is a BLM poem fairly similar to Mike's, and it's called Running on the Spot. You're on a conveyor belt, journey assured, occasionally it judders to a halt. Some may fall off. We are on the treadmill. One trip, one slip, one misunderstanding, we go straight to hell. Do not pass go, do not collect £200, stop and search, incarcerate, swell prison's population. Murderers march streets dressed in black, protect and swerve, this is the justice they dispatch. Victims' last cry for the mother, those who birth us but are not there at the end. From cradle to grave, grieve, no welfare, just the state. So can you please get your knees off our fucking necks? If all lives really matter, why do some so easily get shattered? If you listen to it, there's bits of an older Cardiff in there from when I used to live here. I wrote this when I was in my 20s, believe it or not, and it sort of surfaced at least 20 years later. And it's called Just Walking, because there is a story behind this poem as well. When I sent it to my editor, we had a lot of back and forth about it and changing it. We were having this telephone call, and he went, haven't you written this a different way, where it sort of goes around the page in a sort of S shape rather than being... And I just went, no. He went, oh, I must have dreamt it then. And I just went, tell me what it looked like. So I wrote it the way he dreamt it, and that's how it ended up in the book. It's called Just Walking. Taking in the night air, waiting for the nightmare, or will it be a dream? Walking past the old factory, which spews out its pollution, along the riverbank, where dossers and tramps sleep. And there's no natural route from the brewery to the drunk, their own ruined lives, embers of a dying flame which once lit their bodies with life, and the river carries the past to meet the present. The city holds a million untold stories locked behind closed doors, which sometimes break out into the streets, liberated for all to see. Journalists rewrite them, tabloid diamond sleazers, into victims or animals which deserve no pity. The type behind the typeface forgotten, their lives carry on, like the river to the sea. Negotiating the Taft's rocks and whirlpools, cars drive through the night time's ghost roads. Hours ago, the town would breathe out people. Now darkness draws its breath and tucks them in. A time to walk and clear the mind of countless thoughts that gathered through the day. We live inside this prison. Invisible bars prevent us breaking free. Only late night thoughts pass easily between them. Tear away the chains which bind my tongue and wrap the blindfold. Let me walk the pavements of the truth. The distraught are not the vanquished or masters of their destiny. We cannot clean the streets by scraping them till they shine with our skin. The selfish cut of the bone for the banquet of the unknown glutton. Surely there is a better way of living. I know this is true. The river told me so, as it carried the past to the present, like the river to the sea, and I waited for the nightmare. Well, this time it'll be a dream.
Next up is Taz Rahman, who's done a great job interviewing poets and filming a lot of poetry events as well. He's turned it off for himself now, so he's cheating. He's definitely cheating. Okay, Taz, over to you.
Thank you again for having me. The first poem comes with a trigger warning about a miscarriage if anyone wants to leave the room. Unborn, miscarriage. My mother spoke of a sacrifice, the opaque earth swallowing a cloister of cells, a zygote rehearsing an unbabbled song only she could hear. La 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 la. When it was my turn, she said of kicks day and night, amnion to chorion, sarigama la 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 la. Each night, the tiny fists to unearth a body in charcoal. I drew a mound. I slept for hands to clasp square shapes in veranda rails, fingers to trace filigree, fingers to wash paw pads, scrub fur, smooth ruffles on our Siamese fog. The lips of cedars become elms into distance. Magpies clip evenings of swallows. Seagulls sing the fallen bite. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Fairies gouge a shell of dissolved skin into greater distance. Under a mound, thick earth, somewhere in Azimpur, there is a silent beat. Thank you. The next poem is called Bubble. Thighs as closeness permits, when the boundaries of flesh are still in arbitration. We submerge feet to gauge temperature. Ripples lose shape in ankles. A wagtail traces speech, softens shape, twists itself in the mundane burden of being amoral, rises as tumescent flesh, moulding a third moon, a vulva of tessellating curls in tree-top tangerine. Flint immersed in pebbles under us prickle through the April layers. We're still cold. Leave indents on flesh like human nails thirst for closeness. A temporal blemish in chocolate white the moment we part. I think of her lips sideways, only the wind chiming a distant climb can brush mine and oscillate into her. A stray wind shakes her to a touch. I want this wind shaken to live forever, enter a bubble, dissolve into moss, find its way inside a floating bottle steaming taff, found a screenplay later by another us, a boy and a girl dipping downstream, where the taff becomes eely taff, and it is just mud and pebbles for mute ducks, cormorants, confluence, and then, thank you. The final poem, I read an extract from this last time I was here. This is called My Seasons. Spring. A spider crawls into a leery play, catches the orange sun, vaping the dusty slats, weaving patterns to write the next act. I watch, sip morning tea, get undressed for the day to be. Summer. Up above, insects chide each other, squirm, pagwan, ishwarala, plant tips of limbs on chili bridges, ants line like charging horses, hurtling to meet the contours of the ceiling, so cobwebs can adopt seasons, swaddle love, rattle eyeballs, shield a jawline. When I look out, the eyes become empty seats of the cinema, pining to cut buttocks. Clouds blow smoke, grind follies, seek moisture, splashes become pearls, streams run slithery silver as lines down a pane past nightfall. Autumn. Lone droplets stare at the train line spilling Cathaster Roath. Wagons slow jamboree, attempt to fill the brittle cracks in my teeth, plunging like a blade, ready to rip open October. Light a pyre. Puddles tremble into the night sky, lips touch to close a coffin, silent, dark. Winter. I re-enter a mouth, sing heartbreak. I mouth's years of curdled dust, dead ants congealed, a weakling whispering to a fat clenching chin, sat upright, ringside on a window seat, far past ring girls, breathing champs. Thank you.
Next up is Rebecca. Royall or Royal, isn't it?
Actually, none of the other.
Right, I know, it's not your real name, is it?
Well, it is, it's my mum's
Is it?
name.
Oh, okay, there we are then.
But I wasn't born with it.
No.
My dad appreciates me using his name as Baker.
Great. Yeah, it's funny, again, things turn in circle because Rebecca was a friend and also you went to the workshops of John Davis, who was also a red poet and used to come along to all the gigs. And you remember John? Yeah, great reader, really funny, brilliant
I'm not
guy.
as good as John though.
Pardon?
I've got the beard, but I'm not as good.
All right, thanks. Cheers,
I'm a
Rebecca.
singing voice.
No, I'm not singing, don't worry.
You got to sing.
Oh, do you really want me to walk down blues again after the other night? When you traumatised enough the last time? Oh, is it okay without Deirdre films me on her phone?
Is that alright?
The reason why is that my daughters have never seen me read, and I'd like them to know how terrifying, I mean how much fun it is to read poetry in front of people. It's especially important to me because my oldest daughter is autistic and she writes, but she hasn't got the confidence to do anything with it, and it'd be nice to show her that there's a world out there if she wants to access it, if that makes sense. So do you mind if she just jumps my bit? Is that okay, guys? Yeah? Right, I may shake, okay, a lot. So I'm not going to sing, I promise, I'm not going to do that to you again. Last time I was reading poetry in front of Mike Jenkins, I made the mistake of singing a blues song. It wasn't a pretty sight. I'm not putting him through it again. Okay, so the first poem I'm going to read is kind of my father. My father's birthday was this month. As I said, he's had the bad manners to die, and he's no longer with us, but obviously he's still remembered. There's another reason why I'm doing it this month, and hopefully that'll become obvious as I read it. And this is called My Father's Story, and if I can ever get the paper right, I'll be able to do it. Hang on. And it's called Driving to Work. Ash hangs heavy, ignored by the mouth that birthed it, and others below in a graveyard of cigarettes. He talks of rain that swam in torrents across the valleys, and as swirls of smoke rain in the air. Moans about the clock, with his little hands trapped at 9:13. His companion listens to the radio's 60s beats, beating time with his foot, slips on the worn carpet. Then they hear rumbling words, slurry, onto, school. The ash, too long ignored, avalanches, covering the driver's boots. His companion's shock beats, with the rhythms of tears spreading through villages and towns speeding past. When they arrive, they ache with mothers, aunts, uncles, dig with fathers and strangers alike, as swirls of devastation rain in the air. So that's Dad out the way. So happy birthday, Dad. Bye-bye, Dad. Off you go. Everybody's been saying about poems that come out of nowhere and you don't know where they come from. I generally find that anything I write tends to come out of nowhere. And that's probably a good thing, actually, because if I wrote it, it'd probably be absolutely useless and I'd end up singing, so it's probably not a good idea. But this is definitely one that's very short, and it's called Lightning Without a Bottle. I am the bullet without a gun, the thought without a dream, the hate of generation bleeding rhythms onto silk. I am the dust of shadows, mourning galaxies waiting for discovery. I said it was short, didn't I? And which one, Leanne? Which one? Bridge or die in?
Bridge.
Bridge, okay, we'll go with the bridge, we won't kill anybody off. Okay, so just for a bit of fun, this is crossing the bridge. I swig Fanta, flip fizz into a salivating tidal ball, serve hungry undertows twisting the grey skin of the estuary, past family yarns lassoing herds lost in the mist, implore steel, do not let me fall into currents that ate cows, then drips of foam drain onto my tongue, I have crossed the bridge.
Thanks a lot. And the last poet, great to welcome Brian, who's been meaning to come and read with us, but unfortunately work has stopped you so many times, hasn't it? So great to have you here.
Yeah.
Brian Phillips.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Could I ask if anybody here objects to quite a lot of expletives?
He's got to the rest of my book.
Okay.
Saying that Tories is okay then.
Well, definitely, yes. You know me already. Right, I've been doing a lot of Boris bashing lately in my writing, but I don't only write about politics, but it tends to be quite an inspiration, unfortunately, these days. So this one is called Franken-Tory. I'll put these down for the time being. So as you see, it's quite a long one, but it won't take too long. Franken-Tory. It happened just the other day, the devil came to take away Lord Snooty Mogg and Vile BJ on a monster he was working. As they were leaving number 10, a grovelling voice did recommend, "You'd best take me, I'll be your friend." An unctuous runt was lurking. "It's only just desserts I serve," Beelzebub then did observe. "I've a vacant post for a heartless perv, but I'll tolerate no shirking." The runt cried, "I'm the man you want, my colleagues call me Jerry Hunt. If you'll forgive my being blunt, I gave the NHS a turking." "I'm sure that you're the man I want, I've this arse behind and this dick in front, but you've always been a perfect cunt, so let's celebrate with a firkin." As the four drank all the way to hell, the devil thought, "That went quite well. I've a pair of twats and a prick as well, though it looks quite like a gherkin." When Jeremy got his big surprise, the vacant post was, to his eyes, like a barber's pole, but twice the size, and the whole damn thing was jerking. Bend down, the devil did command, as he took the vacant post in hand, and coating it with glue and sand, said, "This should stop you smirking." So Jeremy Hunt jerks on his pole, unrepentant for the lives he stole. His heart is hard and black as coal, but the devil can't get it working. "If you privatise it, it will pump," cried Jeremy with ravaged rump. "Then sell to Branson, he's a chump, his virgin needs some perking." Now nothing is as it should be, this monster made for you and me is a barking mad kleptocracy, to the brink it is lurching, which is to the brink lurking. Now Franken-Tory is a mess, whose head it has is just a guess. The devil never fixed the heart, the thing had rotted all apart. The arsehole made from Mrs. May, still full of crap, has had its day. And Boris Johnson is the prick, soft-hearted as a London brick. And Rees-Mogg went straight in the bin, so steeped in vile hubricious sin, the devil couldn't bear to hear the lanky git in such good cheer. As Jacob met there all his chums, stiff upper lips and well-whacked bums, yet half of Britain seems to like the psychopath, the crook, the tyke, the pervert on the Boris bike, the road to hell through leafy lanes, the Dunkirk spirit, needless pains, the dark clouds and the chilling rains, the food banks and the endless queues, the ruthless laws, the truthless news, the horseshit in the Royal Mews, the terrorists in number 10, the flag, the pomp and old Big Ben, the lies at 9, the lies at 10. So Frank and Tory marches keen to leave despair where it has been, so half the nation lives in fear. There's even worse to come next year. Sorry for the stumble there, but Rees-Mogg makes me... I don't want to bash Boris all night, and the poem I had in the penultimate Red Poets was mostly about Boris Johnson. So I'll read a poem I had in Red Poets about 10 years ago now, I think, so maybe not that long ago. This one is called The Artist, 1980. I went to Paris one Christmas to take a lot of photographs, had an exhibition in the Mission Gallery, and was disappointed because I sold nothing, even though it was fantastic. The Artist. He was painting the gutter of Wine Street like a Jackson Pollock in bile, his bitterness twisting his insides, on his outside the ghost of a smile. His show had been on at the Mission, but his pictures had sold like Van Gogh's, and along with the plaudits and backbites, he'd received 27 fuck-offs. His vision was fine till he'd shared with the world what had made his heart sing at first sight, but now he just sees in dull greys and black swirled round occasional pinpricks of light. He'd been framed and been mounted, that last from behind. He'd been strung up and hung out to dry, but his blacks had been blacker than all the reviews and his highlights too bright for the eye. They'd all drunk the free wine that had flowed from the font of his altruist's Church of the Arts, whereas hours ago they'd had zeitgeist in spades, now they'd all become Philistine farts. He's unsung, undiscovered and misunderstood and a light year ahead of his time. For the talentless blind, he's a talent too good and a pearl that's been cast before swine. Yes, an artist he was and an artist will be, through a change from the fine to the rough. Though his category still begins with a P, where the pavement is canvas enough. Okay, have I got time for another? Good.
Yeah.
Do you want some more Boris bashing or something about the difficulty of writing? This is a revision of something I originally wrote as a criticism of the Copenhagen Climate Summit, where everybody promised a lot and did absolutely nothing. But as the situation now 10 years later is exactly the same as far as politicians is concerned, all promise and nothing else, I've changed it and updated it a little bit. Okay, it's a bit of a nursery rhyme that turns into a nightmare. No points for guessing who the title is. Blubbercocky. When I was young and Santa old, and children did as they were told, I'd dream as swans with wings of gold flew to the Milky Way. Behind them pigs would loop the loop as scented breezes cooled my soup. White elephants would glide and swoop, and whistling would play. In rhubarb trees they'd build their nests as politicians combed their crests and swallowed all the eaten mess throughout the livelong day. Nose candy mountains, hubris too, had dropped us in an Irish stew, and warm seas with Elysian view called us to sail away. From truth and credibility and wise but dull maturity, straight to the siren's call were we drawn closer every day. In pea-green boats upon a lake of truckers' aid our thirst we'd slake, while feasting on some Kobe steak the golden magic geese would lay. So we could gorge on golden eggs as we bestrode the world on legs, made up of malted whiskey kegs we'd flown down from Islay. Then foaming champers at the mouth, we'd strip the world from north to south, and calling truth a blabbermouth, we'd sing Callooh Calais. But then the dreaded Jabberwock, we met before we'd taken stock, that nothing was there left to hawk, to pay the pipes to play. We climbed the magic money tree, to sniff the air, to watch the sea, to spot the luckless refugee, to blame him for the way. Our government had stolen all the nation's wealth and had a ball. The money tree was left to fall, it rots there to this day. Soon nonsense will the last word be at parties where the mushroom tea is brewed by madder hats than we. Let's desperately pray. Thank you.